Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Talk. This is Brenda. Hello, it's so good to see you all here live streaming with me on Zoom. For those of you that are listening by podcast, hello, hello. We're so happy that you're here with us. So today is going to be a great day because we are doing a roundtable today, which means that we're going to be discussing different topics. Actually, maybe just one topic. What is on our hearts? Charlie and I have been talking about this week, and Misty and I were talking about it last night too. We really feel that what the Holy One's doing right now is bringing forth this need for us to understand our identity. And so that's really what we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to kind of have a dialogue, open discussion, and talk about that. Where do we get our identity from? How do we know who we are? What does the Holy One see when he looks at us? What is our name? And this is kind of what the discussion that we wanted to talk about today. So I hope that you're all as excited as I am. Charlie, welcome. I wanted to welcome
Hey,
everybody. It's nice to
hello.
see
Thanks for
you.
having me today.
Oh, hey, and Misty,
Hi.
so nice to see you. Thank you so much. Everyone that's here on the panel today, we have Tamara, we have Kathy, we have Joanne, Linda Millett, thank you so much for joining us today. Whitney, Letitia, Sherry, I know that we're going to have more people joining us, but I just wanted to welcome all of you who got here early, and I just want you to be blessed today. I am really excited. So, Charlie, what has been the biggest thing that's been happening recently with this awakening for all of us of identity? Do you think it's connected to the Torah portion, possibly?
I think it's always connected to the Torah portion. I think that the Torah is written on our DNA. So I think that as we're going through processes, it's never a coincidence, but a God incidence, right? That we have things are aligning and you're like, oh, that's interesting that I'm going through this, or that we're questioning something. I think that the big thing we're hearing right now is people are there's an awakening happening with women. And I want to preface that by saying we're not some radical feminists and we believe you need to like burn your bras. Well, I would like to, but burn your bras. We're not going through the 70s again. We're not telling you guys all to rise up against your spouses or your bosses or that's not what we're talking about.
No.
There's a movement happening with women, that the Azer Kenegdos that are rising up, and there's an identity I feel that the Holy One, and I'm hearing this all over. I mean, I was listening to Bill Cloud on if you guys listen to his Shabbat teaching, yeah, it was Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
I had to think a minute on Saturday, and it was he even said it. Talked about the women, even in you have the women that rose up. You have Miriam who rose up and stood. You have Moses' mother. You have the Miriam as one of the midwives, but the other midwives, the women that stood up to Pharaoh and said, no, and they surrounded and they made sure they protected the seed. They protected the promise. There was a protection that was birthed, right? That happened. And the woman stood up. It was Pharaoh's daughter that protected and took Moses in. So this isn't a coincidence. It's a God incidence that he is actually rising up. That is their Kenegdo spirit in you. He pulled us from, we were one, and he pulled us into two, a male and a female. We were one, and now we were pulled into two, and now we're actually there has been this oppression that has happened for women for centuries, because, and it's not again, I'm not trying to cause a revolt or a movement, but I do believe that he's bringing out this biblical feminine. He's bringing out this thing in us that we support our husbands, that we surround them, we surround our families so that they can be who they're called to be. And how are we going to do that if we don't know who we are? If we don't know who our identity, how are we supposed to help spark the identity in our friends and our children and our spouses, in our spheres of influence? We can't. So I feel that we're kind of doing that, right? That's what we're called to here today, is to start fanning some flames.
Fanning the flames, exactly. I love what you said. You said that we are the women rose up because they were the ones that were protecting the seed, and we absolutely see that in last week's Torah portion and and extending through this Torah portion too, and then through the entire book of Shemot, Exodus, we're seeing that he strategically calls people into place to do things. And it was like before Moses could do what he was called to do, the women that God had appointed rose up and did what they needed to do so that he could do what he needed to do. And that's why this is so different than a feminist movement. That's not what this is, because we are not saying we're better, stronger, higher. What we're saying is we each need to be able to arise within our identities so that we are, like you said, Charlie, so that we are being able to fan the flame of identity in everyone else too. And in all of the men in our society, all of the sons, all of the brothers, all of the uncles, all of the husbands, all of the fathers, all of the grandfathers, it is part of our DNA of who God made us to be, that we are protectors of the seed. And so what's so exciting is that you don't have to step on anybody's toes to be who you are. And that's a little bit different. That's a little bit different attitude than a lot of people have. I was speaking recently with somebody, and I was talking to them, and their first response was, well, I don't want to be involved in anything that's a radical movement, and women are going to take this out of context, and they're going to start roughshotting over their husbands. You know what? That's always a possibility, but we're trusting that the Holy One will be able to speak life, and that he will cause us to constantly be in a place of bowed knee before him. And if in our lives, if we are ever trying to rise above somebody else and lord over anybody else, that the Holy One would bring correction to us. And that's what we want in our lives anyway, right? That's no different than how we want to live our lives 100% completely. And to model that to our children, to model that to our spouses, to model that to our brothers and our grandfathers and our fathers and our neighbors, right?
Doesn't that
Misty, what do you think
it
about
bleeds
that?
over into
Mhm.
it bleeds over
Yeah,
into everything. It bleeds over into our political
everything.
views. It bleeds. I mean,
Yes.
we have
Right.
we hear see the conversations. I intentionally, if you've gotten a message from me, know how much I love you. But I've intentionally fasting the crazy, and so
Oh,
I'm on a crazy fast. So I'm not participating in crazy this month. So if I love you, because I will jump on the crazy train with you, Bill, and then start my own town. So you know how I roll. But I'm just saying that we could choose, it could be political, it could be racial, it could be all kinds of things that we could go to an
yes.
extreme to
Yes.
where we end up becoming a movement. But what ends up happening is that we need to constantly be our face before the Holy One and saying, is this your agenda? Is this what you want me to
Yes.
say? Is this
Yes.
how you want me to walk this out? Is this in our homes, in everything? I love that you I mean, it encompasses not just, oh, as a female, it encompasses
Right.
everything in our lives. Everything
Right.
needs to come submitted under the Holy One.
Right. But because this is a group that we are only talking with women, we're always going to be saying women. Um, and I mean, that's the nature of this is girl time, right? This chat that we constantly are having with one another. Um, but what a blessing that we get to be examples to everyone, to all people. And that's really the fulfillment of what Yeshua was saying when he was saying love your neighbor. He's not he wasn't just saying love your neighbor. Oh wait, but that's just the person next door. Loving your neighbor means walking in such a way that anybody that you encounter, anyone who's brought into your sphere, that you are humbled before the throne, hopefully, and that you are going to treat them with the chesed that he modeled. That's what we get to do. And as women, of course, we have uniqueness. We have a unique calling within us. And men have a unique calling within them. And we get to rise up and be who we are so that, you know, everyone around us is being able to be influenced by, wow, I can see that I could do that too. I want my sons to feel that they are strong men of God that can absolutely walk in everything that God has called them to walk in. Well, if I'm a woman, am I influencing them to be feminine? No. I'm influencing them to be exactly who God's created them to be. And how I do that is by walking, right? We have to model it out. It'd be really great if we could just like have a checklist and just start throwing out information, but unless we're walking it out, it's not valuable at all, is it? Misty, go sister.
No, it's not at all. And the other thing is that our identity is also tied to our health. It can affect if you don't know who you are, who he created you to be, not just, hey, my name is Misty. It's knowing who you are, he created you to be, the purpose that he's given you to fulfill in your life, whether that is washing the dishes, vacuuming the floor, or being a mouthpiece, or being the pen, as I see Gail, she's the pen.
Hmm.
All of those things are tied to who we are. And when we are messing those things up, it affects our health. It affects us in a way that is different than what we would expect. I had a bout with some pain in my knuckles, and my mom had terrible arthritis. So I started doing some research on it. And essentially, I will just tell you that the pathway to health is kind of where I landed with that. And I watched these videos, and everything they said was about, you need to know your identity because you have authority, you have, and when you have that understanding and you're under that covering, it affects everything in your life, including your health. And so after seeing that and having a better understanding of how it was affecting me, I was able to basically move past it. And I was so thankful that the Father directed me in that way to that thing, because I need to know who I am all the time too. And sometimes I forget and I walk like an Egyptian. Pardon the pun.
That you said that, walk like an Egyptian.
Oh,
I'm
maybe.
Yeah, thank
Bye-bye.
you. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And now for the rest of the day, that song is going to be
Thanks.
trolling in my mind.
I apologize.
No, it's the gift that keeps on giving. I love that, Misty, that even in finding your identity of who you are, that will bring about health. Why? Because it kind of unclogs, right? Kind of unclogs how we're walking. And this is such a beautiful, beautiful time, ladies. Can I just encourage you? I know that there's a lot going on right now, and I am not saying that is not occurring. But if we can actually look past the circumstances and be in a place where we can say, Father, what are you doing right now? He is awakening people's identities. When we look in the Torah portion right now, what is he doing? He is revealing himself, his name, who he is. And it's really interesting that in the Torah portion, he's saying that he is revealing his name not only to Bnei Israel to awaken them. Yes, he is doing that, but he's also declaring his name and his majesty before Pharaoh and Mitzrayim and all of the world. This is not just about us. This is about the Holy One calling out and awakening and calling in his bride from every land, every nation. That's what's happening here. It's bigger than us, but we can only do our part, right? So
That's right.
we're doing our part, and in that, the collective is happening. But he is awakening those um, who absolutely don't even know who he is, and he is declaring who he is. So how do we, in the midst of what is going on right now, in the land, and the land that we're living in, not just the US, but everywhere, how do we stand and speak life to those around us if we are so um, overwhelmed with the circumstances of what's occurring? Now, I hope that you all know, you know me. I'm not saying that hard things are not happening. Hard things are happening. And everybody has to deal with what's going on in a good way that the Holy One is directing, leading, guiding. But we can't forget that he just told us last week in the Torah portion that he would be with us. So if we gather that he is with us here and now, then we can start getting excited about being in the place that we're supposed to be, because we were born for this. This is not too hard. We were born for this, for these moments, for this time. He chose each and every one of you for this time, such a time as this. It's not a mistake. Why? Well, who are you? You've got something going on within you that others need. And as a group, we need each other. We can't do this alone. We don't want to do this alone, right? Kathy Merrick, you don't want to do this alone, do you? No, exactly. Joanne, do you have something you wanted to share? Yeah.
Okay, unmute.
Yeah.
Bill Cloud also spoke about Moses being a seed of wheat being sown into the tares for a season. And in a larger picture, that's where we all are, because we are grains of wheat and we have been sown into a world that's full of tares.
Right.
And so if the promise is to bring us out, until we are being brought out, we have to be, again, exactly how you said it, what we were called to be and do. We're called to be ministers of reconciliation. I know that Halisa Aylwine speaks of Egypt. You come out of Egypt, is that born again experience, and you're given a garment of a salvation. But now it's our job to keep our robe of righteousness clean and white, and to, keep with the spots. So that happens in daily life.
Right.
My husband and I lived apart for 4.5 years from circumstances, going back and forth, keeping property in Tennessee and Alabama, so forth. And when I ended up in Alabama full time, I found out that I'd been pretty darn independent. I'd lived pretty independent in a lot of ways. And my first ministry was to make my husband my friend again. So some of that goes on. And, I found myself being bossy. I found myself being brittle. And so all of those things are refining and ways to remove the spots off of our garment. And it goes from day to day. I think that it's very, we just can't forget the scriptures of who we are, called
Right.
to be ministers of reconciliation.
Yeah, that's right. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Misty, did you have something else you wanted to share?
Yes, I was actually going to say something about that, about Moses, because, in the last Torah portion, he started with giving Moses his identity by allowing his mother to spend that time with him, all that crucial developmental time, to give him the Hebrew part of who he was created to be. And without that, he could not have become what he was destined to become, what purpose he wouldn't have been able to walk out the purpose that the Father had for him.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. And so what do you think? Okay, so this is something that I don't know. I don't know the history of this. I'm sure that like 80% of you on this 80% of you that are here today would be like, really? She doesn't know these things? No, trust me, I don't know these things. When they left Mitzrayim, do you think that his mother Yocheved went with them? Have you ever thought about that? See, I've never really thought about that. I don't know. I just was thinking he was a solo. He was on his own. He's out there leading the way. But his family, I mean, everyone that was there left.
Yeah, and I think yes, my answer to that is yes. But I feel like also tagging onto Misty is that not only was he raised up, but then I believe that when he left and then he gets up to Yitro and he ends up, now there's other opinions on this, so I'm going to give you mine, and it's backed up by many, many stages. Not that any of us are correct, but that Yitro is a priest of Midian, and that the reason that there was contention between the other people and him and his daughters is because he was actually following the ways of Yahweh, that he was actually following what he had learned. Because remember, this is a grandson of Abraham as well, right? If you want to go through and look at his lineage, that he was following those things, and that rang true to my heart. I've listened to other teachings, the opposite, that he was a negative influence, but I believe that he was he was actually the reason that he was sent there to be married to her, to be in was so that he could continue on and be trained up as under a priest, that he was actually a priest of Torah. So
wow, that's a great perspective. Isn't it interesting that when Moses was, and this is from last week, but when Moses was leading the group back into Mitzrayim, and that whole incident happened, that his wife circumcised their son, like boop boop, done, and circumcised him because she understood that had to occur in order for Moses to be walking in the fulfillment of what was required of him. And there's all kinds of talk about that, but I just thought it was really interesting that again it was a woman who was seen from a different perspective, a perspective of, you're missing this, let me assist you. You're doing your job, but you're missing this part of it, let me assist you. And that's really what she did. And that's what we get to do, right? We get to do these things. Misty, stop laughing. Unmute yourself.
just taking it all in. Just taking it all in.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's so good. So Charlie, what do you think about identity? What are some of the things that you would like in this group of women that the Holy One has gathered together, these precious people that we have the privilege of chit-chatting with? What are some of the items of identity that you would like to see spoken over them and into them?
the first thing would be Zephaniah 3:17.
Oh, I love that.
I want to remind you that he dances over you. He sings over you and dances, and he quietens you. And I've often asked in prayer, what do you sing? What's the song you sing over me? What do you sing over me? And what do you do? And I just want to, some of you, I just feel that there's a spirit of insignificance that has taken root in many women, because you think you're home, you are just raising kids, and you're like, that's important, and but you see other people doing all these things, and you're like, well, I'm not them, and I'm not significant, and whatever. But I want to first remind you of that, is that he sings over you, and he quietens you with his love and his heart. I mean, if there's a verse to meditate on, first of all, is that. And then the second thing that I was reminded of is that Yeshua said, if you've seen me, you've seen my Father. And we know that the same Spirit resides in us. So when others see us, are they seeing the Father? Are they seeing that in us? Because that's the only identity that matters. We're not talking about, for those who've had identity crises. I mean, I've been through a few, let me just say. Let's pick an age, pick a decade, and I've gone through an identity crisis at each decade, whether it was Going into motherhood that decade was an identity crisis, because now I feel like I lost my girl stuff, girliness or whatever. And then, you go into each thing, and then you go through the rejection through the church and things happening there. And then the identity crisis that happens, that goes along with that, when then you see other people moving on and writing books and being all these things that you thought you might do. There's identity crisis. But maybe your identity crisis isn't that crazy. Maybe your identity crisis is just that you used to be working and you were a mover and a shaker at a job, and now you're home. And especially with COVID, but even not, as you made a decision that this is what you're going to do, is that you're going to raise godly children, and you're going to work on your home. That can cause an identity crisis. Some of those things, all those crises, we have to submit those. I mean, literally throw those before the throne, and giving everyone permission to say, God, I don't even know what this means. I don't know how. Get rid of my mindset on what identity is, because my mindset is probably skewed quite a bit by Mitzrayim. I probably have an Egyptian perspective of what identity is. And as I walk through this new book, as I walk through these teachings, Father, as you speak the words over them, let them go bathe me. Let them bathe me, that all of a sudden that my DNA begins to shake and I understand who I am. And more importantly, that my identity is about whose I am. That I am the daughter of the Most High King, the creator of the universe. That all I have to do is wake up and breathe every day, and I'm already like, whoo, big identity right there. I don't have to do anything that the world says is fantastic and great and all these things and compare myself to other people driving. Because what I believe the counterfeit of that is, the world's counterfeit is that we drive and we're constantly comparing. Well, I don't live in that house. Well, I don't have this job. Well, I don't have this influence. I love that now we're calling social media people influencers. I'm not an influencer. Or in my sphere of influences, what's happening, and I'm watching other people go ahead, and I've been knocked down a couple pegs. But if we just sit and just know, if that's why in Ephesians we have it, was it Ephesians 3:17? Is it Ephesians 3? When he's 3, I think it starts at 17, when he's like, that his prayer was that you would just know who you are in Christ. If you would know that, that's speaking to your identity right there. Who are you in him? Because once you got that and you're so rooted in that, then you get to pass that on. Then when you walk into a room, they don't see you. They don't see the 55 initials behind your name. They don't see any of the things. Talk about that. I had to wipe out initials behind my name, because God's like, why are you doing that? Is that about you or me? I just want to know. Just curious. I was listening to a pastor the other day talking, and he said that someone had offered him a doctorate program, like a doctorate, what do they call, honorary doctorate, because of a book he'd written. And so he had to just complete some paperwork and go through some things, but they were going to use he had to reformat his book into a thesis format and present it, and they were going to honor him a doctorate degree. And so he was like, he's like months into this, because it's, wasn't easy, but it was simple, right? He was going through the process, and then he was going to bed. He wasn't even praying, going to bed one night, and he hears in his heart, so I hear you're getting a doctorate. And he's like, and it's God, you should have asked me. We didn't even talk about it yet. He's like, oh, so want to talk now? Like, what do you think about that? He's like, you don't need that. Because it's your weakness. I need people to know that it's because of your weakness, they see my strength. So I want you to embrace, if you know who you are, even your weaknesses are going to give glory and honor to the Lord. Everything in your life is going to reflect him and people are going to see, even in your weakness, going, whoa, look at God in her life. Whoa, look what she can do through him. Because again, the verse doesn't say I can do all things through me and my identity and my labels. We were taught strongly, following Bill Bullock for years, we were taught strongly about not associating with a label, because when you take on a label, you take on everything that label has. And what you're saying is this label now is more important. And if you have labels that you are holding on to, that whatever it is in your life, whatever it's happening, whether it's initials behind your name, whether it's a designation before your name, whether it is a
Ministry.
female, male, ministry,
Yeah.
political thing. I am
Yeah.
a fill in the blank, or
Right.
if it's anything, let's just, all the things. And I could probably offend every one of you. I could go down the list and offend you.
Okay. Equal
So I will
offense,
offend your
equal
identities.
offense.
I'm going to offend your identity, and I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but if that offends your identity, if you get a poke because or a quick, then you need to throw that one before the throne. The one that got you, if I say it, I mean, I could keep going. If it gets you, the label I pull out there because you've identified with something, I think you need to throw that down and ask him, what am I identifying with that's not you, Father?
Yeah.
Because that's not your identity. And we've said it, I'm a Christian. I'm a Hebraic roots. I'm a Messianic believer. We all feel like we have to put I'm a fill in a blank.
I'm a Torah observant, or
I'm a
I'm
something. Yeah. So that's why we laugh here and say we're pursuant, because Lord knows
Right.
y'all don't want to be. I can't say I'm pursuant. I'm observant, because you know. Every probably breath I take, you'll be like, oh, Phil, there, oh, yep. So I'm pursuing.
The whole pursuant thing too is it's not technically it's not a term.
It's not a term, and we've had people identify that with us. We're like,
yeah,
I know it's kind of a joke.
Yeah,
y'all.
it just means that we don't
get it.
We're in a journey.
It's a journey, and it's a discipleship program.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, life is a discipleship program. I mean, seriously,
yes.
Right? That's your identity. Is who are you? To be honest, I don't know yet. I'm 52 and I don't know yet. I thought I knew, but every time I think I know, he wipes that out. So what I know is, first of all, that I don't know. And that the more I know, the more I don't know. And the third thing is I'm in a lifelong discipleship program, and that's all I know. Yeah. Everything else is submitted to him, and it doesn't matter. Now, and I'm not even saying that to say it. I think I did for a while. Like I had to act as if I had to call things that were not until they were, because I didn't get it yet. I won't say fake it till you make it. I don't like that saying. I was calling things that are not until they were. I was trying to speak life to that area of my brain, because I had grown up and been in industries and things that I needed a label, and I needed an initial, I needed recognition, and I was super recognition based, that I needed the recognition, and I needed performance based. That's my love language, acts of service. So if it's all of those things. So if you want to show me you love me, do something for me. Just kidding, but not really.
No, she's not kidding.
For my birthday, Brenda came over and helped sand a desk for me. She's like, I didn't buy you a present because I knew that this would mean more to you than a gift. So
yeah, we made a cloffice. I had
a little office, and we put her and my husband put a little, they put boards across it and made it into like a little desk so I could work in a little, we called it a cloffice. So she sanded it all and everything so I could work in there. So
yeah. Linda Millett, you unmuted yourself, and then Joanne had something to say. Linda, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I didn't think I had anything to say to this issue, but hello. The Holy One just really reminded me of something that happened when Gary and I were teaching adult discipleship class. And we had 3 brand new baby Christians that were relatives. And one was a married couple, and then the sister-in-law who had been living with this gentleman for about 10 years, and they had just come and joined our church. So they get into our class, and they're delightful. They're so hungry. You just love brand new babies, And we're having home meetings, because there's some intimacies and work in the Holy Spirit that you just don't get done in a classroom. We need to be developing friendships and creating, cultivating these relationships. So this one night, we are all sitting around in this other couple's living room, and the Holy Spirit tells me that it is Sue Ellen's night. And I thought, okay, God's up. So we asked her to stand, and we encircled her, and there's probably about a dozen of us. And what happened then was totally beyond anybody's control. But this woman had the most remarkable visitation from God. And what she saw was who she is in the Spirit. And she tipped her head back and lifted her voice, and with tears running down her face, she is describing the spirit that we truly are. And no one could even speak a word. We were so stunned by the presence of God and his power showing up. This revelation was so critical to everybody in the room, but most importantly for her. So this went on for, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes of this extolling the virtues of the Holy One, the virtues of God, the beauty of his loveliness. And she just got this heavenly download, right? Well, about 3 weeks later, her fiance, they had just decided to go ahead and get married. He was murdered. She had this big, God became a rock. This rock of this revelation of who she really was carried her through a man who was murdered in his underwear in the middle of the night while somebody's stealing all his equipment, and he's self-employed. And he's left to die on the side of the road. It was a horrible thing. It wasn't just, clean. It was ugly. And watching Sue Ellen go through that and knowing the revelation that she had received from the Holy Spirit was absolutely remarkable. Yes, it devastated her. Yes, it was difficult. But you know what? 15 years later, and it didn't actually, not much longer, but right now, today, she is happily married, very successful in everything, in her walk with the Lord and in her career. She is rolling out that vision that God gave her that night. So to say that, to not know who we are, to not know the Spirit, that we're no different than the disciples saying, should we rain fire down on them? You don't know what manner of spirit you are. If we don't know what manner of spirit we are, we're not going to act accordingly. We're going to be too influenced by our flesh. We're going to be too influenced by the things around us and other people's flesh. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, all those things. Unless we start getting anchored into the goodness of God and who we are in him.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I was, I'm so glad you shared that. And Joanne, I'm going to get to you in just one second. I'm so glad you shared that, because what was hitting me since we started this discussion time was I kept hearing the Holy One, who am I? You're going to get your identity from me. Who am I? And I'm looking at Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 5. And when he's telling us who we are, he starts by telling us who he is, because we are his. And he says, I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, where you lived as slaves. And then he goes into, you are to have no other gods. This is who you are. You don't serve other gods. This is who you are. But he starts off the basis of our identity with explaining to us who he is. And that is so essential, because we can't get our identity from a class or from a teaching or from, we have to get our identity from him. And so I just, this is gonna, this could be just, in fact, it is going to be, right, Charlie? We are going to start having weekly talks, calls, and we're going to be discussing identity. We're going to be discussing who we are. We're going to be discussing this, correct? Yeah, that's coming up. Joanne, sister, thank you for being so patient. What would you like to share?
I'm kind of left speechless by Linda's sharing that. And when she said that this woman was throwing out all the vision of who God showed her she was all the time, now she's throwing that out. Whew, what a high thing. Okay. I have studied Musar, which is a ethical, it's ethics, character development, perseverance, the things that are also in the New Testament. This is a Hebrew perspective of character traits. And there's exercises that can go depending on which Musar book you're reading. And one of them was, everyone you encounter, everyone you meet, write down that night something you learned from them. And when we're talking about being light, being who we are, being the image of God, it turns the perspective on me. I prefer to think of who have I seen today that threw out that image of God? And I can look for that in the most tiny places. So I have names and I have things that I learned. And it's so interesting how each person had such a different thing to teach me and that I could learn from and that I could apply to my character. It's yeah, if we're going to be his image, then we have to find his image in others. So our attention goes back to them.
Beautiful. Charlie?
Sombra has her hand up,
Okay.
right?
Sombra.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
So Charlie said Zephaniah 3:17, she said, dancing and singing over me. So I go and I get my Bible and I look it up. And mine says, he will exult over you with loud singing. And I'm like, loud? Hold on a second. So I go and get my Hebrew Bible. My Hebrew Bible says, he will shout over you with jubilation. And the Hebrew has Rina. Rina is the root of my son's name, Ronan. And Ronan's middle name is Baruch. So we call him shouts of praise. But then as Linda was talking, as Joanne was talking, I'm thinking, hold on a second. Before I had Janny, I had a miscarriage, and God told me, I will turn your sorrows into dancing. And, you know, if we're talking about identity, these words are who I am, right? And Charlie, I bet you understand this, because I'm a loud person too, but I went to a Camp Exodus down in Colorado once. And
She's saying I'm loud.
You know-
That's like, know that first. Teasing.
no, I'm not loud. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not loud. But we were in this women's section of the camp, like a women's like small group kind of thing. And I started crying. I said, you know, I long to be meek. I long to be Brenda, who has this such a beautiful, quiet spirit about her. I long for that. And as I'm saying that, I'm also saying, but I like who I am. You know, I love me. And I've had people tell me that I should change, that I should be different. And every time I try to be Brenda, quiet and perfect, Brenda's going to hate me for saying that.
No, that's her anointing voice. I'm her best friend. I'll tell you, that's her anointed voice. So we'll hang around a while. No, I'm teasing. She does. It's hard. Imagine being her best friend and she's like, all sweet. I'm like, stop using your FM radio night voice. I need you to like talk to me in like your, you know, loud. And my whole time growing up, I'm told, be quiet. You're talking too loud. Be quiet. Yeah. Sombra, that's an anointing. That's who you are.
Exactly. And a lady said to me, but you are meek. The fact that you love yourself and that you are who you are and you know who you are, that is meekness. And oh boy, what a blessing that was to have somebody tell me that my powerful, loud, vivacious personality was meek. It was great. It was perfect.
Well, and you're going to hear most of the time, you'll hear, I mean, Brenda and I've said this often, you'll hear her, if she's on here, we'll have to recap, but she'll say all the time, oh, I wish, they're just talking, Brenda, about Sombra was saying how she used to think wish she was meek and quiet like you and had such a, I said, you're using your soft FM evening, FM radio voice, unless you get excited or, you know, passionate. So I said, this is her anointed voice. But I said, we'll talk to each other. And like one of us might wish that we were the other person. I wish I had your voice. And the other person's thinking, gosh, I wish I was outgoing like her. And I wish I could be so more energetic and I'm not so reserved. And I wish I could do this, you know. So you think it's interesting, like Brenda is actually the more social of the two of us. Brenda is very social. She's very, very social, and very extrovert, more extroverted than I am. It's not that I don't have any extroverts, but you'd be shocked at how much I enjoy not being around people. And so I love one-on-ones. I do love that. That sounded really bad, huh?
No, it
It's not like-
didn't.
All
No,
the
it
introverts
didn't.
out there, I need you to say woot woot because you understand, you get it. Woot woot. I'm just Brenda gets energized by being around a ton of people, and she loves it so much. And
Yeah.
and then so there's the part of me like, gosh, I wish I could be like that. And then she's like, I wish I could be like Charlie, like that, you know. So
Yeah.
you guys really stay in your lane. That's your identity.
Oh, sister, I'm so glad you said that. Stay in your lane. The thing is that we're all so unique, and we're all, I mean, okay, so you guys know I'm almost 62. I've been around the park a few times. So listen, I have gone through so many identity crises. And it always comes back to the same thing. Like I'd said earlier, it's getting a hold of who he is, because we think like Charlie is such a dynamic personality. I'm just going to pick on her because I know she can handle it. She is such an amazing personality. And it could be very easy to be intimidated by her, or to think that you don't measure up. You know, standing shoulder to shoulder with somebody who's so dynamic, so talented, so accomplished, so educated, has such unique insights. I mean, really, yeah, I know. And that's just the beginning. And so, yeah, in our relationship that we've had, and we've been partnering together for a lot of years, her and I, there's been so many times where I have felt very, very inadequate, and not feeling like I can't measure up. And it's not just with Charlie, it's just life. That is just what happens. And when that happens, we have to stop and say, okay, wait, hold on a minute here. If I am uniquely made, then what I'm feeling at this inadequacy, hey, we're dealing with this with Moses, right? Last week in our Torah portion of Exodus 1 through 6:1, 1 through 6:1 last week, Moses was saying, I can't do this. I'm not the right one. God called him, but he's saying, I'm not the right one. I have felt that way my whole life. I know there's things that the Lord wants me to do, but I don't feel adequate. I don't feel that I have enough education. I don't feel that I have the right experience. I don't feel that I have the tools. I don't feel I have the time. I don't feel whatever. I just want you to know that is absolutely part of the process. But what we do with it, that's what's going to take us to the next level. What are we going to do with that? We have to clear the board, and we have to say, who is he? We have to start over again. Who is he? I need to draw my identity from who he is. Who does he say I am? And how am I to relate to him? And how am I to relate to others? And we all need to be able to rally around one another and encourage everybody to be uniquely who they are, because that's how this all works. We can't have a bunch of Charlies, only Charlies. We can't have a bunch of Brendas, only Brendas. What a mess that would be. And if you don't think so, let me spend 5 minutes with me. I'll tell you. I'll give you all the reasons why that would not work. We have to have the uniqueness.
I'll tell you how to spell it correctly.
Yeah. Stop now. You're exposing me. That's okay. I love that. Charlie and I were doing notes together, and we do that where she's so smart. She does it all online, and then I watch the notes as they're being written. And so she's writing up all the notes of the things that we're going to be doing later. And I said, hey, can you indent that? That's not indented correctly. And it's just notes between the two of us. So yeah, hello. This is what she has to put up with. But anyway, so it's just a fact of us being able to understand that it's okay for us to be different, but it's not okay for us to compare ourselves with someone else, because then that's like an idolatry thing, guys. That takes us out of the game. It's a distraction and it takes us off the path. We need to keep our feet firmly on the path. And what is the path? It's who he is. What does he say? What am I to do according to what he says and who he is and who I am in him? And that puts our feet back on the path.
Brenda, I think we had the perfect example when Yeshua talks to Peter and he says, who do you say I am? Who do they say I am? I mean, he goes through the whole dialogue with him, right? He didn't say, who are you? So, and there was like, once he told him what he wanted to hear, he said, he went through the process, feed my lamb, feed my sheep, you know, do the thing. He went through the process, but it was about, he was speaking back to him. Here's what you're going to do then. Now that you know who I am, here's who you are. Now that you know who I am, here's who you are.
Right.
I mean, he said it he gave us examples of what to do, and in increments, like, here's who I am, then here's what you do. You know who I am, then here's what you do. I'm thinking if he had answered wrong, if he had answered wrong answer, he would have said, okay, we need some more discipleship here. So when we look at that, when he was speaking over them, again, like Brenda said, we see that even in the 10 words, we are told who he is first.
Yep.
First of all, who he is, because you know what? In a lot of countries, I love that, like Simi, her name, she has her name, and then it says Day Cherepanov, because she's of her husband. But before that, she was of her father. So it used to be that if you knew the father, then you knew the son. You knew that this is very ancient Near East that we don't understand in Western cultures, but knowing who your family is. Now, down here in the South, there's 2 questions that they ask you. First question is, where do you go to church? Which Baptist church do you go to? The second question is, who's your family? And the third question is, where'd you graduate? Like, they want to know who are, and all 3 of those questions are asking the same question. Who are you? Who are you? And if they know what church you go to, they know who your family is, and they know where you went to school, then they've got enough to decide if they're going to finish the conversation with you, if they're going to jump into a relationship, whatever. Have you done that? Have you done that with people? You've asked them a few questions because you're trying to find out, who are you? Huh? How about maybe asking some of those questions to yourself? Who are you? But ask the questions, journal this out today. Like, ask the questions that will identify, are you like your father? You know, what are you talking about the most?
Yeah. Where do you spend the most energy in your
Where
conversation?
do you spend the most of your energy?
Yeah.
Where do you go to school? You know, where do you go to church? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
So, and if you can answer those, and if you think, well, I jump into a bunch of political discussions all day, and that's where I'm spending most of my energy. This is no judgment zone. Okay, I spent way too much time on Pinterest the other night looking for haircuts. Okay, so let's just go there. So where am I spending? What is what I'm doing? And then I get on a rabbit trail, girls. You know how that goes. You're like on Pinterest and you start looking for a haircut, but then you see a recipe and you're like, oh, that's good. Avocado. Oh, that has avocado. I like avocados. Let me look up what avocados are the nutrient values. Oh, this is a superfood. Oh, superfoods. I should do shakes. Oh, I should start juicing. That's my life. So what looks like, so I just want to tell you, I'm not judging you for whatever area you're going down, whatever movement you decided to jump on, or whatever thing that you're so passionate about changing the world. Is that his passion? Does that look like your daddy? Is that what your daddy's doing right now? Then that's what you need to be doing. If that's not what your daddy's doing right now, then you need to ask him, what is he doing, so that you look like him, so you are about your father's business.
Yeah.
Because the rest is Nunya business.
I need to quote that. I need a t-shirt.
Nunya
t-shirt. Nunya business.
Nunya. Seriously,
really
do you
true.
really?
Yeah.
Really?
No, really.
Yeah, it sounds easier than it is, but it is easy. Yeah. Or I say it's not easy, but it's simple, right?
It's simple.
The simple thing is you just stop. I had to tell some people, I told you lovingly, I just said, and I do this jokingly sometimes, and it's just like, hey, I'm on a crazy fast. So please help a sister out, and don't send me any political videos for me to watch and give you my opinion. And oh my gosh, this is, the world's falling apart. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. Please don't send me those videos, because I literally will start a militia and start making bullets. And they could get crazy, because I can get passionate. And my husband was an Army Ranger. We could go crazy. We literally could start crazy town, crazy universe.
They live on a base, guys.
We live right now. Yeah, right now we're on the Air Force Base. So don't tempt me. Help the sister out and keep me from going to Crazyville. So, but you can do things like that with your friends and be lovingly about it. You don't have to be mean. You could just be loving and be like, you know what? I know this is an issue that you're passionate about, and I appreciate all that. And I appreciate that many may think I have my head in the sand, but do I? Because, I heard a statistic the other day that our grandparents in their lifetime did not hear as much bad news as we hear in 1 week. And they made it just fine. You had people, now the extreme of that, Civil War, it was years, and there are people still fighting. They didn't even know it was over yet, right?
Right, because nobody told them. Nobody
So
sent
the
them.
problem now is that our knowledge has increased so much that knowledge has become our God.
Right.
And it has
Right.
become our identity.
Right.
Because we get to know something more, or first, or
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah. And along with that, right in that, it's really important that in the platform that we have here, that whenever we have an opportunity, or we bring somebody in who has the opportunity to share and to teach, the knowledge that can be gained is amazing and fantastic, and we're so grateful. But the goal is not to make you smarter. The goal is not to fill your brain with information. The goal is not to make you a higher level intellect than the person sitting next to you. The goal is that you fall in love with your Messiah. The goal is that you are on your face before the King of the universe and loving him and worshiping him and being before him and having that intimate relationship. That is always the goal. The goal is not to become just filled with knowledge, because like Charlie said, knowledge for knowledge's sake, forget about it.
no,
Yeah.
good segue. Good. I know we have to close, but I just
Yeah.
want to, it's like this. We were all given this a beautiful, we'll do after party, girls.
Yeah.
We've been given this most beautiful love letter that tells us who we are.
Yeah.
Our dad loved us so much that he wrote this beautiful love letter. So us meeting like this and gathering like this, or any calls we develop, it's not, again, I love Brenda. Thank you for that, because that is not the goal. The goal is that together we get to break open the love letter from our daddy,
Mhm.
and we get to share with each other what we got from it, so
Right.
that we know who we are in him.
Yes.
We just get to keep coming together and reminding each other of who we are in him.
Yeah.
And we all have different decoder rings, and maybe you got something that I didn't get, and we get to sharing. I mean, if you're over in the comments, there's such great things happening over in the chat over here in the Zoom. I wish we had time to read all of it.
Fantastic.
Just great things. But join us, guys, if you're listening over in on the podcast, or you're having to watch the replay. Anytime you can hang out with us, we would sure love having you
We
in
would.
here.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, only half of us have our cameras on. I happen to go to hair and makeup this morning, so I'm ready because I have to do other videos for y'all. But
Yeah.
that's not. I think we're gonna do some pajama parties some days where everybody has to
Yeah.
come with no makeup and jammies on, so we get to get it. We're talking about keeping it real. Let's do some real parties, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, Charlie. And thank you for completing my thought, because the whole thing is about our relationship with the Holy One, and loving him and knowing him and being with him. And part two, the second part of that, is loving each other and being able to express that out. If we are only isolated just in our relationship with the Holy One, and we don't extend that to the people that are around us, then we're not really loving him. Because like you said in John, Yeshua said, if you love me, you're going to tend my lambs. You're going to tend my sheep. You're going to feed my sheep. That's what Yeshua said. If you love me, you're going to express that to the people that I bring into your life. And that's really what this is all about, is community. It's that is community is what's going on right now. And we start having a successful community by finding out who he is, spending time with him, having a download of identity from the Father himself, and also gathering people around us that will speak into our life who we are and speak into our life identity. And that's what we do here, is speak identity one to another, because that's his hand extended. So we love that. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to just turn off the recording here in a moment and go into the after party. Again, as Charlie said, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And please come and join us live as often as you can. We love it. And if you can't, then watch the replays. But if you can join us live, we would really love it. So we just want to say goodbye to everyone who's listening to us, and we bless you and we will see you next week. Have a great rest of your day. Blessings.